Hello, my name is Carmen Finn, and I'm Senior Director of Treatment Services at Wayside Recovery Center. Today we are going to be talking about Riple, which is our contingency management system at the two residential programs, Women's Treatment Center and Family Treatment Center. Riple stands for Rewards in Positive Living Environment. Some things that we are going to cover is some history with contingency management systems in the substance use field, some 101 information that you'll need to know on your first day of the job, the difference between power over and power with, which is a relational cultural theory concept, as well as being trauma informed, and how to assess can't versus won't with clients. So, history of the current system is substance use field is relatively older, and historically the substance use field has been confrontational in how we do treatment services. So the attitude of the day was very punitive, and a lot of negative reinforcement was used to try to do behavior change, whether that was negative reinforcement in terms of privilege removal in residential facilities or additional tasks or that sort of thing. It was generally more consequence-based and punitive. The idea and the reason why negative reinforcement was used is that there was sort of this understanding that there needed to be a way for staff to maintain control over the chaos of addiction. What we know now, though, with lots of research and understanding, is that addiction is a disease of the brain. It is not a moral failing. And so we want to really come from a place of understanding, too, that individuals who have the disease of addiction also need trauma-informed services. And you will receive additional training on trauma-informed services as well. So don't worry too much if that me saying trauma-informed isn't registering with you yet. Many of our clients' maladaptive behaviors are the result of this trauma, and so we want to avoid reoccurrence of trauma. And with trauma-exposed women, punishment can be triggering. It's very difficult to do punishment or negative reinforcement therapeutically, even for skilled clinicians. And positive punishment, like adding pain, always results in relationship ruptures. And since we know women are relational and we utilize relational cultural theory at Wayside, which is also another training that you will receive, so don't worry if relational cultural theory also isn't something that you recognize with me saying. What we know, though, because women are relational, we use RCT, is we want to try to avoid relationship ruptures while we're providing care to the clients. What we know about punishment, it's very negative for women who have felt disempowered for most of their lifetime. So some women who feel disempowered include those who have experienced a history of trauma or violence, those who have experienced poverty, individuals who possibly have experienced some punishment in their educational systems, and women who have minority status, so women and then ethnicity, race, cultural, sexual orientation, that sort of thing. The other thing is change when punishment is used is always temporary. So once the punisher is out of the picture, the behavior tends to return. So what we're looking for is lasting change, and we know that lasting change occurs with positive reinforcement, and that negative reinforcement and utilization of punishment or consequences results in behavior often returning. So Riple, which is Rewards in Positive Living Environment, does not undo the need for treatment that is high quality, trauma-informed, gender-specific, and culturally sensitive and family-centered. So we still have a system with Riple that we are expected to deliver very high-quality, trauma-informed, gender-specific, culturally sensitive and responsive, and family-centered treatment. There are 5 major components of our contingency management system, Riple. The first one is rules. Rules are defined and operationally defined. Responsibilities. So this allows the clients to feel strong and belong to a community that needs them, and so that also helps build self-esteem and helps women feel empowered. good habit cards, and those are growth-based contingencies. So what they do is they teach skills, and we'll get into that. And also the reward system itself, which is a chip shop, or what we call a chip shop, where women can actually buy objects or things in the shop with what they've earned. And then treatment, which is the therapeutic interventions that complement Riple. And so we must address clients who present with ongoing problems, behaviors therapeutically. So if Riple, using the contingency management system, demonstrates that there's something else going on for the client, and that is something that is occurring often, and it's becoming a pattern, then rather than trying to solely rely on the contingency management system to address that issue, we're actually pairing with the client and trying to find something that individually will work with them therapeutically to address it. So a new way to look at promoting lasting change is to use a power with model instead of a power over. So when you have or you utilize negative reinforcement or punishment or consequences, there tends to be a situation where the individual, generally the staff, is utilizing power over methods where they say you must or you need to do a certain thing to change your behavior, and it's sort of forced or coercive, and that's power over. And I think we can all agree that that doesn't feel good, and generally we don't appreciate that as human beings when we have somebody telling us what to do or using their authority to coerce us or manipulate us to do something different. It doesn't result in lasting change, and it does rupture relationships. So what we strive to do is a power with. Our clients come to Wayside with a variety of goals, and we can use our contingency management system to partner with the clients to power with. So in that case, we help them with Riple meet their goals and utilize their life skills and follow their responsibilities. And when we do that, clients feel empowered, and they also feel like they're in relationship with us to meet their goals. And that has the benefit of much more lasting change. So when we have discussions with clients, the discussion we have with them is how do we help them meet their goals within also the contingency management system. So our Wayside mission is to empower women to recover sobriety, identity, home, family, and community by providing treatment, housing, and supportive services. And we really feel like a power with model is empowering for the clients to make the choice each day in how they are going to conduct themselves in the community and have that personal integrity and really be a person in community helping with the contingency management system. So a question, we can propose is, when are you most likely to do something? And such as like make your bed. So are you more likely to feel empowered to make your bed if you're punished every day to do it? Or are you more likely to want to make your bed if, for example, somebody paid you or you had a positive reward or positive relationship with somebody because you made your bed? Most people find that intrinsic change happens where you have a desire or feel empowered to do something when you're getting that positive reward. And so if somebody just tells you to do something like, hey, you have to make your bed each morning, you may do it each day to avoid a punishment. But if once that person is out of your life and they're no longer telling you have to do something, or that punisher is no longer there, you oftentimes stop doing it. Whereas if you feel intrinsic reward or empowered to do something, and there's a feeling that both feels good and feels in relationship to others and community to others, those are the types of changes that we make. And so we want to empower women to learn to do these things because it's part of their goals that they're working on, and not because somebody is telling them to do so. Because once Wayside is out of their lives, we don't want them to stop changing. We want them to continue to be growth-based. Some of the reasons why people gravitate towards a power over approach instead of a power with is that power over, it does tend to be much more efficient or faster in terms of you seeing immediate change. So it also gives you the sense of control, and it tends to be something that we find is there's an ease of use to. A lot of different things in our society, there's a power over situation. So in terms of people seem to gravitate towards a power over, and why we really need to be mindful of not gravitating to that with the client is that we tend to want to be efficient. But because it doesn't promote lasting change, people do what you want while you're there, but they do what they want when you're gone. Power over does not teach skills, and it does not take into account rightness of the cause or the long-term impact of people and their potential. So power over can be both problematic and potentially dangerous. And as I stated before, it's really hard to do power over in a way that's therapeutic. And it definitely doesn't align with our relational cultural model. And so we want to be mindful when we approach clients that we're really coming from an approach that's power with. So that when we're doing power with, it's the ability to work with others to get something done by cooperation and power of consensus. So the power of people working together to solve a common problem. So it's the treatment staff plus the client trying to solve the common problem of addiction. And so we're in this together. So a way to look at power with in action. Perhaps you had a teacher way back when you took a different approach from power over model. Instead of relying on rules, she showed respect. Instead of pointing out problems, she leveraged your strengths. Instead of having to be in control, she guided students in co-creating their own learning experience, right down to where they sat and how they positioned their desks. In response to questions, she often had other students weigh in with their own ideas. By year's end, you knew your reading, writing, and arithmetic inside out, but more importantly, you had a love of learning and a fully charged sense of possibility. So that's a working white paper, Power Over versus Power With, by Tom Therese. So that's something that you can look into too if you're interested in reading more about that. You can look into that working white paper. But really what that highlights is looking back in your own life when you had teachers who used a power over, telling you what to do, where to sit, when to get things done, versus teachers who were cooperative and really made sure that you gave input into ideas and things. It not only assisted in your relationship with your teacher, it tended to give you more of a zest for what you were learning, and you felt empowered. And generally, when you look at self-esteem as well, with a power over approach, it tends to erode self-esteem, and with a power with approach, you're looking at increasing self-worth and self-esteem. So some of the pros with Power With is it promotes lasting change, encourages cooperation, encourages relational interactions. It's very meaningful with, two heads are better than one approach. There's power in numbers. It's the message that we are equals here, we're all in this together. It's trauma-informed. It acknowledges we're all part of the same system, and it teaches, it's teaching and learning at the same time. So the cons with Power With model is it tends to take time. So when you have the power over, again, it's efficient. You get the sense that you're maintaining control, you're feeling orderly. With Power With, because you're getting lots of input and you're having conversations and you're being relational, that tends to take more time. It requires a lot of effort on your part. You need to be able to improvise and think on your feet because you're really individualizing each interaction with the clients. And so it defies efficient standardization. It also requires you to have additional emotional intelligence as well as cognitive intelligence and forces us to subordinate our ego for the collective good. So those are tall orders, and because we know Power With is the best model for change, that's what we strive for at Wayside Recovery Center. So using Power With and Riple. Power with Riple is we have an emphasis on life skills building. So all of the responsibilities that we ask clients to do at our residential treatment center, we really want to help build skills for things they can utilize when they're no longer with us. Additionally, the Good Habit Cards builds coping skills and strategies that we want them to use to take with them to help with their mental health and addiction. We also have job role changes. how do you perceive your job changes, how the client perceives staff will change, and here to help you do it versus here to tell you how to do it. So the staff, when we're doing any of our Riple duties, which all the staff have partnership in Riple in some way, we are there to help the client find ways to be successful with Riple as opposed to just telling them how to do it. We're partnering with them. So when we're looking at empowerment, it's really looking at the inner power within the individual and how to sustain our lives, leads or follows with power with. It's sometimes thought of as self-confidence, self-motivation, or self-sustainment. And so power over is innately opposite with power to, as it limits empowerment of the individual. And since our mission statement actually has the word empowerment, it's really important for us that we find ways to help the clients gain self-confidence, self-motivation, and self-sustainment. So with Riple, we strive to get the client to the place where they feel they have the power to do for themselves and the ability to not be afraid to ask for help when needed, because everyone needs help sometimes. Riple is a means to an end. We want to promote self-sustainment and lifelong change. So clients have choice in Riple to engage or not. There's good habit cards. There's emphasis on empowerment in our system. Then the reward system, which is a chip shop. And we also have an advocacy method where if clients feel there's something unfair with whether they did not complete their responsibility, they could also go to Riple Review and self-advocate, which also is empowering. Okay, so some of the main components of Riple that we need to make sure we review. Each person at hire, when you come to one of the residential facilities, will receive a Riple handbook. So this may feel like it's confusing when I break down the different parts of the contingency management system, and remember that you can review and carry with you a Riple handbook as you go along, so that you can review it after you get hired and you're on site. It also helps to see it in action. So if this feels like this is a lot you're taking in this training, just be prepared that you will receive an actual handbook with all of this written down, and not to panic, because once you start to see it in practice, it's a lot easier to retain. So the first part of the contingency management system is the actual rules of each of the sites themselves. So both residential facilities have rules, and those rules are written out. And the reason that those rules are written out is that we really want to make sure that there's predictability, so that the clients know what they are expected to do and what would happen if they break a rule. All of our rules are based on safety and respect. So we have gone through our rules and we make sure that we don't have rules just for the sake of rules, that the reason for each of our rules are based on the ideas and our values at Wayside for safety and respect. We average about 50 rules, which I know that seems like a lot, and many of the rules that we have are rules that, when written down, they will make sense in the lens of safety or respect, such as don't steal, abstinence only, meaning don't use on site, those types of things, and it's very clearly written out in the handbook. If a client does violate one of those rules, then they are asked to pull what we call good habit cards. And what these cards are is they're actually about the shape of like a chance Monopoly card, and they will pull the corresponding number of good habit cards to the rule of violation. And on each one of those good habit cards is a task, and it's a coping skill. And those coping skills, hopefully the clients will then take with them and learn. And they're generally fun coping skills, such as go to your room and listen to music, research a new meditation technique, use square breathing. And the purpose of this is that the client will then take the card and do that task for 15 minutes. So it's a way to expose clients to new life skills, new coping strategies, and it also sort of gives them sort of a break from whatever is happening for them and while they do that coping skill. When the client is doing good habit cards, they do need to spend 15 minutes on each card, and then they are placed on what we call reflection. And so they have that time while they're on reflection to do the good habit cards. They cannot do good habit cards during programming hours. It has to be outside of programming hours. And while a client is on reflection, they cannot go on pass, they cannot watch TV, and that sort of thing. Now, there is the aspect of client choice here. So when I say they cannot, if they are actually doing their good habit cards, they would be doing them instead of going on pass and watching TV and that sort of thing. However, if a client does not want to do their cards and they just would like to maintain on reflection, that's their choice and they can do that. And so we really want to continue to gently remind them that they do have good habit cards waiting for them to complete, and what can we do to help partner with them so they can get those done and they can then get themselves off reflection. And so they do have that choice of doing the good habit cards at the pace that they want to do that. And so some clients, when they pull one or two cards, they just do them. And then some clients, they go to their room and they do something else for a little while and they may not choose to do it right away. And we really want to avoid getting into power struggles, and instead we really want to work with the client to do those things. So rules and rules violation, each rule violation has a corresponding number of good habit cards the client pulls and then is placed on reflection until those good habit cards are completed. There's a system that we have in the intranet to track that. And again, I understand that me just telling you these things, for a lot of you guys, you're doers, and so it's going to make a lot more sense once you start and you can see sort of what this looks like as you get going. So that is rules, which is a component of Riple. Another component of Riple is responsibilities, and so this is the piece where we're teaching life skills. And so clients have responsibilities during the day, such as taking their medications, going to programming, making sure they're going to programming on time, and then doing what we call Riple or house duties, which are small tasks that maybe take 15 minutes that teaches life skills that they will need when they move on. And so if they do those responsibilities during the day, then they earn what we call a daily chip. And so these are just round wooden chips, and they can use these chips to go spend in the chip shop. So what's really exciting for clients is they can, save these up, and they have choice on when they spend them. They can go to the chip shop and they can buy things for themselves, their children, that sort of thing. And so they really, they get buy-in for being part of these responsibilities that they have, such as going to programming on time, taking their medication on time, because there's a reward at the end of the day if they've done their responsibilities. If they don't want to engage in the responsibilities, then they do not earn their chip, and that's their choice, and we don't get into power struggles. However, if it becomes a pattern, that is something that we address therapeutically with the client, and often the clinician that's involved in the client's care will work on that therapeutically with them individually to see what we can do to help partner with the client to help them be engaged in the contingency management system. Another component of Riple is for the staff to be assessing can't versus won't. And so the assessment that we're doing here is trying to figure out, is the rule or the responsibility not being completed or followed because the client can't do it versus they won't do it. And those are two different concepts. If a client won't do it, it's because they just willfully are making the choice of, I don't want to engage and I won't do that. In that case, we won't power struggle, we'll respect client autonomy, and we will likely address that individually therapeutically. However, if the situation is it's the client cannot do it, such as the client has the job for during room checks to make sure that their floor is vacuumed. However, you've noticed on several occasions that their floor is not vacuumed. And when you question the client about it, they said, I don't know how to work the vacuum. That's not a won't, that's a can't. And so we want to assume positive intent, and we would like to partner with the client and say, okay, so you want to vacuum your floor, however you don't know how, so at this point you can't. I would like to partner with you and show you how. And so you would actually go with the client to find the vacuum, show them how to operate the vacuum, and do it with them to make sure that the next day and the day after and the day after that, the client is successfully able to complete the ability to vacuum their bedroom floor. And so that's not just teaching a life skill, it's also showing cooperation and being in relationship with the client. And so assessing can't versus won't is a big component of making sure that we're in relationship and we're power with the client instead of power over. The next part of Riple is the self-advocacy part, which is Riple review. And so if a client feels like they have completed their responsibilities, but a staff person has come and said that they did not, the client can sign up to go to Riple review, and that's at different times and different days at the 2 varying sites. And then they have the chance to go before 3 other staff and sort of state why they think they actually did complete their responsibility and self-advocate for themselves. And if it turns out that there was either an error in the system or an error with the staff, then the client will earn their chip. So this is really empowering for clients because it gives them a place to self-advocate for themselves. And it also shows that we as an organization are also willing to admit we're not perfect, and that sometimes we also make errors. And so it gives a client a chance to go and say, look, an error was done here. I actually was in class at this time. And then they can learn those self-advocacy skills and gain self-confidence while also maintaining their relationship with us so we don't experience a relationship rupture. And that gives us a chance to say, oh, there was an error, we're sorry, and we're going to make that right. So that the Riple review is really important in terms of the relationship that we're keeping with the client and saying that no system isn't without fault. And so we want to give an avenue for clients to be able to talk to us and say if they feel like there was a situation that we got wrong. So that is Riple review. These things are going to be discussed with you during your training over and over and over again. And I really encourage you to look at the Riple handbook and review the differences with regards to rules and responsibilities and when to encourage clients to go through Riple review on your own time and in your first week or 2 of employment, and ask lots of questions. It can be intimidating for newer staff to go up to a client and say, hey, I noticed this rule violation. I'm going to ask you to pull some good habit cards. Sometimes that can be sort of stressful if you've never engaged in a contingency management system. And so I encourage you to partner and be in relationship with other people, to ask people to be involved and watch them when they're engaging with the contingency management system so you can learn and be fully engaged. Riple works best when we're all engaged with it as staff. All the staff are responsible for the contingency management system and making sure that things are predictable and safe. If you have any other questions or concerns, certainly do give me, you can call me at my office. I have an open door policy. I also encourage you to ask your direct supervisor more questions and read the Riple handbook. Thank you very much and have a great day.